Hey everyone, Dan from TellyStats here. Hope you're doing okay. It's been a while since we last spoke, hasn't it? Life has been busy, really busy for me, so I just haven't had time to make videos and barely coded the website at all. Anyway, I've got some time now, so I wanted to talk to you about Strictly 2023, my views on it. I did pretty well in my last set of videos for Strictly 21, so hopefully we can repeat that. Before I deep dive into Strictly, I do want to talk about some other topics first. If you don't care, if you just want to hear some betting advice for Strictly, I would advise you just to skip ahead to
3 minutes, 3 seconds.
And you can avoid all the nonsense before that. So a little bit about my background. I have danced for about 15 years. I have taught classes, I've won competitions, I still dance regularly all over the place. It's a big part of my life. I don't pretend to know everything about salsa, I don't pretend to know everything about waltz and all the different techniques that they have, but there are common elements in every dance that will tell you if a person has a natural flair for dancing, if they have a natural ability, or if they at least have had some experience in the past, probably to a greater level than just the average person watching the show who's never danced before. So with that experience, I'm hoping that I will be able to impart some wisdom to tell you who the finalists will be this year and hopefully work out who's going to win and who will be eliminated, etc., etc. Before I go any further, I want to give a shout out to a bettor that the community lost recently. His name was Mark Selwyn. He was one of the specials betting OGs, really. He was there from when I began way back in 2010. I was a bright-eyed, bushy-tailed 22-year-old graduate, and sat in front of you now is a 35-year-old man. And he was a constant presence throughout all that time. He passed away recently in August. Just to say what he meant to me personally, on one occasion we actually met in real life. He took me with him and his daughter to a Britain's Got Talent semi-final filming, which was really cool of him to do. And then on another level, you know, when you do anything in life, I think, when you put your heart and soul into anything, there will always be people coming out the woodwork to criticize you, to ridicule you, etc. And in those situations, you look for support and motivation in the darkness, right? Mark was always supportive of everything that I did, always supportive. And I always appreciated that very much. His loss will be felt very deeply by the specials betting community, and I wanted to give him a shout out, so this is it. All right, let's start talking about Strictly now. In the past, I've made the videos after the group dance because then you get some idea of dancing ability, but A, I was simply too busy to make a video, and B, I actually switched off the TV halfway through the launch show because I just find it incredibly boring and uncomfortable viewing. It has first date vibes, doesn't it? Everyone's trying to be 500 great personalities at once. They're all up to their ears in adrenaline, and it just feels forced and unnatural. Then you have the first meeting of the pros and the contestants, and you know the meeting is shot when they hug each other. It's shot from 3 different angles, so they've obviously just redone it. It's all very Big Brother. It's all the entire launch show is just bullshit from start to finish. You know, and inevitably the pro is always like, "Oh, you're the contestant I wanted," even though it's an 80-year-old obese man who definitely can't dance. I feel like I would have more respect for the pros if they saw their contestant for the first time, just punched a wall in anger and stormed out. I can respect that. I'd vote for that. I know that we're already at the week 1 stage. They've already danced individually, but let's have a look at the group dance anyway. And I will tell you how I got an inkling as to who would be good and who would obviously not be so good. So as you can see from the group dance, it does correlate very much with the finishing positions that they've had in week 1. The good dancers in the group dance tends to be the good dancers in week 1 as well. Everyone sort of fell into place. What I'll do now is I'll go through each of the contestants individually. I'll pick out the pros and cons. I'll also draw from their week 1 dances. We'll take a look and we'll see if we can work out where these people are going to finish ultimately, at least the general area where they'll finish. I'm not sure if I know the winner yet. Let's start with Les Dennis. There was hope that, him being a household name, there is some goodwill behind him. He might be the fun contestant that people get behind. And what we found in week 1 was that Krishnan Guru-Murthy just swept that rug out from under his feet. That angle is gone. Looking at the week 1 dance with Nancy, you are able to tell when someone doesn't give a shit versus when someone is a bad dancer who is actually trying. Les Dennis falls very much in the doesn't give a shit camp. It doesn't look like he's trying very hard. There's also points where Nancy is clearly shouting instructions at him for an extended period of time. The point of Strictly is that, obviously all the pros will kind of shout instructions a little bit to their contestants, but you are supposed to learn the choreography and stuff. And I think that when you see Nancy just mouthing quite clearly, it suggests that he really isn't putting his heart and soul into this. He's looking for an early exit, and I think he's going to get one. On to Nikita and Gorka now, and I mentioned in the group dance that she looked uncomfortable in that, and she seemed uncomfortable again in the week 1 waltz. In the panic of Strictly, I think she must have just forgotten her steps. She started to rely on Gorka's lead, but when you're not a dancer, there's always going to be a delay. She forgot her head placement in the waltz, and you've got the impression that by the end of the dance, she knew that she hadn't done a good job. You could see it in her body language. She just gave it up as a bad job. It just wasn't fantastic, was it? In terms of other contestants, I think her nearest comparison in terms of ability and her looks really is Zara McDermott. The problem with that Nikita has is that Zara is a slightly better dancer, not much better to be fair, but Zara also has a lot more name recognition, and I think she has a slightly more memorable personality. So I think Nikita loses out on multiple levels here. I don't know, unless she has some kind of rapid improvement where she can possibly have something like a journey, I'm seeing an early exit for her. Moving on now to Krishnan Guru-Murthy, who is obviously looking to become this year's Ed Balls fun middle-aged man type figure. You also have that juxtaposition between his poker face day job and the person that you're seeing dancing now. His dance had all the hallmarks of being the fun contestant. You've got the loud costumes, you've got the fun song. It reminded me of like Judy Love's when she danced to Get Busy by Sean Paul with Graziano. Just silly moves, silly song, entertaining. He doesn't actually look completely useless. So my suspicion is that, Craig is going to tear him apart for weeks and weeks and weeks. And then one day his arc will come to an end where Craig goes, actually, you know what? That was pretty good. And then he'll be voted out a week later. That's normally how these things work. The other thing with these entertaining contestants who obviously have no chance of winning is that they tend to hit a ceiling in their vote. They're in the low double-digit percentages in the voting figures, but they never exceed that. I'm talking like 20% week after week after week. And obviously, as contestants are eliminated, you need a greater vote percentage, a greater vote share to stay in the competition. And eventually, at 20% it just doesn't cut it, or 18% or whatever, it doesn't cut it. And that's when they're eliminated. If I had to put a figure on when Krishnan leaves, it's going to be mid-show, isn't it? We're talking between week 6 and week 8, I'd say. But who knows? Moving on to Jody and Joita now. Completely ignoring Jody for a moment, the show doesn't tend to like back-to-back pro winners. Obviously, Joita won last year with Hamza. So what normally happens is that when a pro reaches the final or wins the show in one year, the next year they'll be given someone who clearly isn't going to win. He was weak in the group dance. He looked uncomfortable. And in my experience teaching people to dance, especially beginners, they tend to be very wrapped up in their heads, understandably. They're doing move 1, move 2, move 3. It's like they're reading from a script. And one of the challenges of teaching someone to dance is getting them out of their head and trying to make them feel the music. I said, dancing comes from the heart, not the head. And when you watch Jody dance, you can see that he's dancing by the numbers. He's reading from a script. He's executing the moves in order from start to finish, just hoping to get to the end. There isn't a natural flair that you can see in his body. Some people have a natural ability, some people are just born with it, some people it takes time to develop, some people just never develop it. Jody, I don't know which one Jody is, but right now he's a weak dancer and he's very, very behind, and I don't see him advancing very far in the competition. I'd say maybe a week 3, week 4 exit. On to Adam Thomas now. Now, I'm not going to tell you anything you don't know. It's pretty obvious that he's not a good dancer. What I like about him though is that he's grinning from ear to ear. He's got a big fat smile on his face the entire time, which makes me want to root for him. It makes me want to see him improve. I think that's what Strictly is about for a lot of people. He does have name recognition. I think he does have some goodwill. Luba isn't the most popular pro, but I mean, he's obviously not going to get that far in the competition, but I feel like I want him to do well. So I'm hoping he will make it to maybe like week 6, possibly. On to Zara McDermott now. She said herself that she can't dance. On paper, you would think that, a young woman in good shape, she would be a good dancer, but it's clear that she hadn't really danced before, and it shows. Her week 1 performance, the cha-cha with Graziano, it was like 75% walking and posing, and 25% cha-cha. There really wasn't that much content there. More importantly with Zara, her more than any other woman in this show this year, there's a wider point about women in reality TV to be made. If you're a woman who wants to win Strictly, it's a show that's primarily watched by middle-class women aged 30 and above. You have to be a girl next door type, you have to be modest, and crucially, you have to be unthreatening. For all the merited critique that's thrown at men for the way that they treat women, you have what's less mentioned is that we men have to stand back in awe and amazement at the sheer amount of toxic judgment that women impart on other women. And Zara is that kind of person, right? She's got the hair, she's got the makeup, she's got the body, the background's in Love Island. It's not great for Strictly audiences. She comes across, to be fair, she comes over very nice indeed. She really does. But ultimately, I'm just riffing about a wider aspect here of specials betting, women in specials betting. But she can't really dance. She isn't going to go too far. And yeah, again, another early exit. On to Eddie Kadi now. The question that I think is on everyone's lips when Eddie Kadi is mentioned is, who is Eddie Kadi? He is definitely the least famous male celeb this year. Again, he has all the hallmarks of an also-ran. His quick step in hold, actually doing the quick step, wasn't great. So he had his butt sticking out, and there was times when he was leaning over Karen. Now, Karen would have pointed this out to him in training and tried to correct it. So my guess is that just in the excitement of the moment of the live shows, he just lost his technique. In other parts of the dance, he was actually quite zippy, quite a good mover, a natural mover. So on a technical level, he isn't that bad, but he has a big hurdle to overcome in terms of name recognition. We've had a similar situation in the past. AJ Adudu, when she competed in Strictly in 21, no one knew who she was. She got bottom of the stats in the opening shows. So a lack of name recognition can be overcome. The problem is that AJ was obviously a great mover and she went up in people's estimations very quickly as a result. Eddie just isn't that good. So I don't expect him to do very well either. Finally, we move away from the shit tier and we're entering the mid-tier competitors now. Let's talk about Angela Rippon. Obviously, she had that explosive debut with the cha-cha with Kai. She got great stats. But the problem is that it reminded me of Lisa Riley in her opening dance, which also got a great reaction. It's not about the dancing itself, but the person. People weren't expecting it from a lady of such advanced years, right? The fact of the matter is, when you look at her dancing, she does show her age. Her back is just naturally arched at this point. She's slow across the floor. She's a little bit stompy. When Kai was bringing her down the steps at the beginning of her week 1 dance, it looked like a man who was helping an old lady down the stairs. So yes, there is that initial excitement, but that excitement has to wear off and give way to actual good dancing and actual technique. there are a lot of people within the betting community that think that Strictly is going to try to get her to Blackpool. That would make sense. There's a sort of poetic perfection. There is the natural story arc. You know, she hosted Strictly Ballroom, which was sometimes hosted in Blackpool as well. So it feels like a natural kind of story for her. But my feeling is that her dancing isn't good enough. If they get her there, it will be by dragging her there and sacrificing other contestants. I can see a shock dance-off where she's in the bottom two against somebody else and then they save Angela, even though they probably shouldn't, just because they wanted to get her to Blackpool. The truth is that I'm not sure I'm in agreement with the betting community on this one. The reason is partly because of her dancing generally, but also the clue was at the very end of that week one dance where Kai lifted her leg all the way up. That feels to me like they're going for the big guns already. They're blowing Angela's load in week one. What more can she do? So it feels like how can she top that? And it's only week one. Can that last her all the way to Blackpool? I don't know. I don't think so. But we'll see. Let's move on to Annabel Croft now. Her odds are much shorter than they should be, to be honest with you. She also suffers from the same thing as Jody Cundy, which is dancing by the numbers. It looks like mum giving dancing a go, but she isn't great. In terms of the middle-aged woman category, it's a head-to-head between her and Amanda Abbington, and Amanda absolutely dominates that. So Annabel fails in that category as well. The cha-cha that she did for other reasons, the cha-cha that she did in week one wasn't great. There was a lot of faffing around with silly tennis props. At the end, they lift up a trophy. Pretty sure that's the only trophy that she's going to be lifting in this series of Strictly. It certainly won't be the glitter ball. I see an early exit for Annabel. She's currently at odds of 12-1. That's a lay in my view. For the reasons that I've given, she just isn't dancing naturally, and her competition outclasses her in every way. Having talked about Annabel and compared her to Amanda, let's talk about Amanda now, because I think that this woman is a major dark horse in this competition. I have her down as a finalist. There's a lot of good things to say about her dancing. I spotted it in the group dance and again in her Viennese waltz in week one. What I really liked, what I noticed first, were her perfect spins. Her technique for spinning is perfect. Maybe when you're watching dancing you take it for granted, but spinning is, especially for a beginner dancer, is very difficult. What you normally have to do is you're dancing profile to the camera and you start there and you have to end there. And often what happens when people are spinning, they become disoriented and they come out over there, or they bob up and down. There's lots of different ways to get it wrong. Her spins are perfect. She obviously has dance experience. The other things, in terms of the lines that she drew with her upper body in the Viennese waltz, I mean, you can't learn that in just a few weeks. There is either a natural ability or some training in the background. It was just perfect. Then her footwork, yes, it faltered in some areas, but it was really good. I have her down as the best female contestant this year on a technical level by a significant distance. So yeah, she's behind a lot of people in the odds, and it's a big call. Her stats weren't great, but I thought she was absolutely fantastic. I have to, just from my knowledge of dancing and her ability, I have to say that she's a finalist. The other thing, of course, is that she's dancing with Giovanni. Giovanni is a great teacher and he's a very popular pro, which doesn't hurt her at all. I don't know anything about Amanda. I have no opinion, good or bad. I'm literally just saying this based on her dancing. But yeah, I have her as, I'm very excited about Amanda. I think she's really good. Onto the sort of upper tier of dancers now. Let's start with Layton Williams. You know, we've seen this 100 times. Anyone who has experienced betting on Strictly knows the story here, knows how it's going to go with Layton. He has a lot of things working against him. He is the ringiest ringer we've had in a long time, and people don't really want that winning Strictly, you know. Strictly only comes along once a year, and part of the joy of watching Strictly is seeing someone who has gone on a journey, who wasn't that great or who was just okay, to begin with, and then suddenly becomes an incredible dancer towards the end. That's the story we all love to see. We've seen it many times. And I've said this in previous Strictly videos, when someone starts all the way up here, when someone starts at absolute excellence, you can only disappoint. You can't wow because you're already at the highest level. You can only go down in people's estimations. Seen it 100 times, we know how it's going to go. It's going to be maybe to the final. I don't think he's going to make the final. I think he's going to come 5th or 6th. So as well as being a ringer, there are other things working against him. The same-sex partnership, there is still a subsection of society that just can't handle that. The other thing is that he is quite camp, quite effeminate, which is again difficult for some parts of Middle England to accept. You think about John Waite and Johans that year that he competed. The thing is that John could sort of pass as straight, whereas Layton is out and out fabulous gay. No reason why he shouldn't be that way, but we're talking about Middle England, middle class people who sometimes just find that hard to stomach, unfortunately, is a sad fact. But ignoring the gay side of things, he's just too good. We saw it with Danny Mack and Natalie Gumidi, Reese what's his face. They're all just too good. There's no story. It just looks like you're watching two professionals dancing, and in this case you are, because he's a West End performer. Layton was my first bet in this year's Strictly. Before the week 1 shows, after the launch show, I think he was about 5-1. I laid him at 5-1 for as much money as I could put down. And after week 1, after an incredible dance performance, technically incredible, he's now 17-1. That tells you everything you need to know. People understand the truth about ringers in this show. He isn't going to win, and that's that. Hopefully you laid him at single figures, because it was a fantastic bargain as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, I'll say it again. 5th place. I think he's going to be. It will be like Reese. He isn't going to get the votes. Then he's going to be in the bottom 2, and he's going to be used to get rid of people before they eventually get rid of him. Let's talk about Angela Scanlon now, because she's a difficult one to place. I talked about the comparison between Annabel and Amanda, and Angela's main competition is her fellow young, decent dancer, Ellie Leach. I think Ellie edges it on technical ability, but Angela is still quite good. She has got potential. So I think Ellie and her will be battling it out for supremacy over the next few weeks. It's difficult to say who's going to come out on top. My feeling is that Carlos is not an impressive choreographer. His choreography is often not that exciting, not that innovative, and it shows his lack of experience, which will come with time. But he's not there yet, and you see it in the week 1 performance that they did. But like I said, it's hard to call. She is good technically, so we'll see how they work out. To go into more detail about what I feel would be the rivalry between Angela and Ellie, Ellie feels more polished. Her technique is better, but just based on her jive, there is an air of ringiness there. Angela is a little bit more raw, a little bit less experienced. She's got more scope for a journey. It just depends on how the public take to both women. Will they care about previous experience? Will they care about the journey for Angela? Whose personality is more gripping? Whose personality is more fun? It's hard to call right now. Angela is currently 5-1 to win the entire show. It isn't outside the realms of possibility that she could, but 5-1 is far too short. Far too short at this point. Nobody should be backing at that price. So let's talk about Ellie now. She danced the jive in week 1, it has its upsides and its downsides, dancing the jive. The jive is a fun dance, it's an exciting dance, and will give you that boost to start the show. The problem is that after a few weeks, you've done your waltz, you've done your Viennese waltz, you've done your foxtrots, there's all less exciting dances, and you need something to pick people up again. Obviously, there's the Charleston, but the jive is the other exciting one. Now they've used that one up. Like I said earlier, it's hard to separate Angela and Ellie. I will be interested to see how they both dance ballroom. Once we've seen that, we'll get a better idea of who's going to come out on top. But on pure technical ability, Ellie is the winner here. Now we're into the speculative winners area. Nigel Harman surprised many on the night, but his dancing in the group dance was really, really good too. He's clearly had some dance experience. You can't talk about Nigel without first talking about Katja. Obviously, Katja had that incident a number of years ago which sullied her image with women for a long time. Could this be the year that she finally gets redemption, that she finally gets forgiveness and she wins? It's possible. On the other hand, his main competitor, Bobby, is dancing with Diane, and Diane's never won either, so I'm sure the show would like her to win too. With Katja though, I think Katja is probably nearer to retirement from Strictly, so there is a chance that they might favour her over Diane. I'm not saying that Nigel isn't a great dancer, he is, but I think that the market overreacted just a little bit. He's danced in the Paso Doble. It's a very intense, exciting dance. It was in the pimp slot. There's pyrotechnics everywhere, but his price crashed big time. But when you actually watch his dancing, it's really good, but there are certain holes in it that you can pick out. Occasionally, he is a little bit wooden, and what I felt when I compared Bobby to him is that Nigel was giving it his all. I don't know how much more he can give, whereas with Bobby, it always felt like he was in third gear. You feel like we haven't seen the best of Bobby yet. It's always good to keep some cards close to your chest at these early stages and then surprise people later on. I wonder how much scope Nigel has to do that. Katja though, I mean, you can't fault her choreography. She always comes out with something incredible. So I definitely see a good run for him in this series, no question about that. If I had to place Nigel right now, I would say runner-up. Again, he's another one that I'm going to be interested to see in ballroom. It's easy to cover mistakes in fast and exciting songs. Ballroom, especially things like the waltz, where there's lots of technique, it's a little bit harder to hide your mistakes. So I'll be interested to see what happens there. My suspicion is that he might not succeed as he has done in the Paso. So runner-up for now. Whew. And finally, Bobby Brazier, 20 years old, currently sat at the top of the market, 3.4 to win. I'll be completely upfront, I wasn't really a big fan of Bobby in the launch show. I don't know how well he's going down with Middle England mums. He seems like a very nice boy, but is he connecting with the audience? I wonder to myself if the age thing is a problem. Is he going to end up like Joe Sugg? Is he going to end up like Harvey? A worthy challenger, but ultimately a second place finish. As I mentioned when I was talking about Nigel though, he was dancing the foxtrot. It's not a dance where you can wow people really. So I think that Bobby has more to give. I feel like as I said, I think he was very much in third gear. When he hits fifth gear, you're going to see something exciting. I liked the way that he danced. He has a big smile on his face. It looks very natural for him. He looks super relaxed. He was even singing along to the music. That isn't the hallmarks of a person who's concentrating and really focusing on the dance and really giving it their everything if you're singing along to the song, right? So I do think it bodes well for him. I think it's going to be interesting to see how he develops. I have him as a tentative winner right now, but like I said, I do have concerns about the Joe Sugg / Harvey journey instead. I just wonder if women connect with men that are a little bit too young. But yeah, Diane is also due a win, but her choreography often disappoints. It's nowhere near the level of Katja's, so it's advantage Nigel there. So we'll see how things go. In terms of the wow factor, the potential wow factor, and dance ability, dance technique, I think Bobby is the best male celeb. So, but I think Nigel is more palatable to the audience. So it's a tough one to call. I have Bobby, like I said, I have Bobby winning for now. But at 3.4, it's that's not great. I backed him. He was my second bet. I backed him at 4 to 1, which I thought was fair. Ultimately, you can't not have Bobby on your books. We all know he's going to be in the final. Do you really want to live with that stress of having him red? No. You've got to have him on your books. So if you don't have him, there. If you don't have him green, I would suggest just get him green now, and then save yourself a lot of stress. So yeah, that's my run through of all the contestants. I'm not nearly as confident with my top 4 as I was in the Rose Ayling Ellis year, but my top 4 for now are Bobby Brazier, Nigel Harman, Amanda Abbington, and Ellie Leach, but I'm not sure about her. The winner for me right now is Bobby Brazier, but you know, it's not like the year when I predicted Rose to win early on. Rose for me was such an obvious winner, so obvious. This is a year where things have to develop, so don't expect such an accurate prediction this time around. For people that are new to strictly betting or haven't picked up on the usual narrative of how a winner is created, it tends to follow a similar pattern every time. Not always exactly the same, but there are elements that repeat. Basically, in the first show, you don't want to get a 10. You don't want to be fantastic. You don't want to be perfect or like a pro dancer, because then you're too good. You can only disappoint. But also, you can't be too bad so that people write you off. You're looking for an average score of like between 7 and 8. That's where you want to be, because it shows that you're a good dancer, but you've still got room to improve. Then after that, you need to coast along a little bit, get rid of some of the driftwood. You don't need to play your big guns yet, but then eventually, maybe around week 4, week 5, that's when you need your first big hit. That's when you need your Ecuador, but you know, Hamza doing Ecuador where he lifted Jawita over his head. That's when you land the first punch and you put yourself on the radar. Then, once you've landed that punch, once you put yourself on the map, you need to get to about, you need another one basically. So you need to get to about week 8, week 9 ideally, and then hit them with another wow routine, just like Hamza did with his African routine. It kind of sealed the deal. I say it sealed the deal for Hamza, but Helen Skelton, if you remember, she did her mine hair routine, and that was in week 11. I mean, she couldn't have timed that much better. So that's when she became a challenger. That's when she had her wow moment, came just at the right time for her. Ultimately, she didn't win, but it goes to show that you have to have that iconic dance that sticks in people's minds, that gets people excited about you. And there are plenty of people that just never had one of those dances, and they sort of fade away into obscurity and are eventually eliminated, even if they had potential. So yeah, that's my advice. My advice is look out for the people in the early stages getting between that 7 and 8 range, and then wait for the big punch, wait for the big dance, wait for the one that knocks you out, and work out whether it's a sign of greatness or if it was just a one-off, whether they can do it again. That's where you'll find the winners. By the way, you have less than a week now to play the TellyStats prediction game for Strictly Come Dancing this year. Submissions will close as the week 2 show begins. Basically, what you do is you put all the contestants in the order that you think they're going to be eliminated, and then the closest person wins for that year. My prediction is over here. Check it out right now, over there. And I'll put the link in the description below so that you can make your submission. It's always a bit of fun, and there's major bragging points for people who win. In terms of other things that you can do, always make sure to check out TellyStats.com. It's the website that I run. We gather social media statistics from various different social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. We also monitor followers on lots of different websites, new followers, like Instagram followers for each contestant, and you'll get an idea as to who's doing well and who's disappointing. I would also tell you to exercise a bit of caution, because Bobby Brazier is a young guy, so he probably has quite a large following on Instagram, especially young people, etc. So he may get more followers than are actually merited for his popularity. Who knows? But that's just my feeling. Anyway, this has been a long video. I hope that you're still with me. I would love to know your thoughts. If you disagree, we're going to see how things develop. I will try to make another video in the next few weeks, and we'll reassess the situation. Like I said, this year I don't think it's going to be a coronation like it was for Rose Ayling Ellis. There's going to be a little bit more movement, a little bit more drama, I think, which is a good thing. Even though in the year where Rose Ayling Ellis won, it was my biggest betting win ever, I still said that it was a boring year. because everything just played out like clockwork, right? This one, yeah, this one's going to have a few twists and turns, I think. Some people are going to surprise. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the series, and hopefully you are too. Thank you very much for watching. Please share this video, comment, subscribe, you know, blah, 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 blah. I told you a million times, you know it. Thanks for watching. Cheers.